Check, check. Check. Let's see. Copy, copy, copy. Pasty. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3. Hey, Marcus. God dang, am I losing my mind? Is it week 4 or week 5? It's week 4. Hang on. Here we go. Not bad. There we go. No, it is week 5, isn't it? 2021. Yeah, it's week 5. What the heck, man? Monday, week 2, week 1, week 1. Andy, I think we're doing okay, man. But, man, I'm just losing my mind here all of a sudden. Let's see. This should be week 5, right? Or is it week 4? When do we start? God dang. Yeah, I'm totally losing my mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Week 5. Gosh dang, was I posting these in the wrong? Oh, man. Yeah, totally confused, man. Daisy, help us out here. What is it, week 4 or week 5? Jeff, thank you. Yeah. So, I must have posted the announcements for this in the wrong damn class last week. I guess that's the problem with having so many classes. Let's go take a look. Week 4, week 4. Week 4. No? Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah, just totally confused here. Man, I gotta clean these classes up. So anyway, let me change this back. So how was everybody else's weekend? Obviously mine. I had too much sleep this last weekend because, apparently I can't get my weeks right here. There we go. But oh, you went skiing. Oh my God, man. I bet how cold was it up in the high country? I mean, I can't even imagine. So, I guess if you're like skiing though, you kind of expect that. Where'd you go and how cold was it? I'm curious. Because that is you 30 degrees above or below. And Matt, you got into an old hobby, and yeah, Matt, if you're in here, no, you don't have to do discussions if you're here with me on either this one or on Wednesday. That's fine. Loveland. Oh, really? Warmer in the mountains this week. You know what? I noticed that on the news the other day. Hang on just a sec. That so I'm up in the Springs, and we were like 4 degrees warmer than Pueblo. Um, and that happens whenever you get that Canadian air, and it just sits in the same spot. Because of course Pueblo's in a basin right there. But I'm glad that it was a little bit warmer up in the mountains for you there, Jeff, because that's yeah, man, it was freaking cold. It was bad cold this weekend. So like freeze your pipes kind of cold. Can't start your car cold. Don't put your dog out cold. But that's okay. Oh, Magic, yeah. No kidding. That's a card game I never got into. So I remember when it all came out though. So yeah, so I hear that that's especially going on true with the Pokemons because everybody's like, "Oh, I remember these from my childhood." Yay. So I saw a really interesting analysis. I don't remember which podcast it was on. It might have been on Useful Idiots, or something like that. It's all about the GameStop thing and how like all these people who like noticed it, a little bit later than the folks on the Reddit there. And like all of these, it's like, oh, I remember that. Yeah, I want to save this company kind of thing. And so it's like all these childhood memories kind of thing. And then a whole bunch of people got in when it was like 100, $150. And man, they got roasted on that one. For a little over 500,000. Oh my God, they're like Beanie Babies, man. That's crazy. Oh yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. What was it? Yeah, Beanie Babies was the one I remember when they came out. They started, if I'm not mistaken, as like, God, they might have been something that you got in a Happy Meal or something like that. And some of those original ones sell for a freaking fortune. I remember friends putting a lot of money into that. So we had a rather unflattering term about that, about, like a certain kind of like trailer park retirement kind of thing. Hey, Abby, how are you? Let me get off that horse right now and let me dive into the class here a little bit. We need a trivia topic. So I can never remember if this is the class where we're building a list or not. But if you got a good one in mind, throw it up there. But let's dive into week 5 here, because and I'll post up an announcement here because we just started a brand new course module. And so that's Module 3, Individual Part 2, and we have a new assignment, all right? So it's the same thing as before, Chapter 5, Chapter 6, homework, and then the quizzes, all right? If you're here with me on the live stream, don't worry about the discussion forum, so I'm going to give you points for those. And that'll be true for the Module 2 discussion when I go through and do the grading for that. This class, like most of the grading, gets done on Tuesday, and so it should all be cleaned up by tomorrow night. We also have a Starfish report due tonight, so if you're in athletics and stuff like that, I will take care of that, and so don't worry about it. But I think that one's for everybody, too. It's not just for the folks in athletics, and so, if you get a kudos from me through Starfish, you're doing great. If you get a hey kind of thing for me, then that's something you should pay attention to. But it's a little early in the semester for me to be dishing out any kind of like, hey dude, do your work, kind of stuff. So don't worry about that too much. All right. And then but we do have a new assignment. That's critical thinking case. All right. And so let me go through these and kind of show you how they work. So click on this, and then you're gonna write a submission. Don't click this write submission. Just type it up and then do browse local files, just like you've been doing with your homework. So these are worth 50 points, so they're a little beefy, all right? But it shouldn't take you more than an hour or so to do this. And so I just wanted to go over the rubric here real quick. Most of the grades, so 30 out of the 50 points, is based upon the quality of your answers. So complete, thorough, and well-defended. Paper format. All right, so conform to the assignment of standards outlined in this rubric, which I can't remember if that actually shows up in here or not, but I'll show you the template that I use for this. And then grammar, all right, so definitely proofread it. Go back through and, make sure that it doesn't read like a mouthful of broken teeth, all right? So here's the actual, the requirements. So, and that's just on this link right here. This is the assignment PDF, okay? And so place the following information, 12-point font, single space, the upper left-hand corner. And so I want this piece up here, single space, upper left-hand corner. So this will serve as your mini title page. You don't need to do a title page on these. All right, so but do this just up there, name, date, class, section, and number. So this is 301, section 1. All right. You only have access to one Dropbox, so don't worry about that too much. All right, if you jack it up, but it is section 1 technically, and I do have 3 sections, that two or 3 sections of this class running right now. I think 3. So, but anyway, chapter number is the chapter that you decide to pick, and so select one of the case studies from critical thinking case studies. At the end of a chapter of your choice, you can even choose a chapter we have not covered yet. So any one of the chapters is absolutely fine by me. All right, and then for each one of the questions, most of them, I think all of them have 3 questions. I can't remember if this is the book that's standardized or not. We'll go look in a minute. But just type up, this is your header for that one question. So question 1, and then type the text, the question text verbatim. So just copy the question text in there. And then in a paragraph or so, beefy paragraph, so like half a page kind of thing. Answer the question, including any follow-up questions in a single paragraph, about half a page. Justify and defend your answer. Make sure that you address any counterpoints that someone else could make to weaken your answer. Rinse and repeat for the other 2 pages. Total, your answer should run between 1.5 to 2 pages. Anything over 2 pages, you're getting a little bit wordy. Anything less than about 1.5 pages, I get a little suspect about like whether or not you're actually trying to answer the question or just get the assignment done. And that's okay. So, but at the same point in time, if, like some people say, well, over 1 page is like a page and a line. That trips off my radar. All right. And so those are the ones that I grade, and I look at it really carefully, and I'm like, nah, you're not really answering the questions here. And I'll either give you a dinger on this quality of answer right here, and then of course you can resubmit it after that. But also at the same point in time, it also tells me that you're just kind of not really engaging with the questions, because every now and then I get a case study that's like question 1, 1-line answer, question 2, 1-line answer, question 3, 1-line answer. Those are ones I give a 0 and I send it back to you and I say, nah, try a little bit harder. So, and I do. I don't know if we talked about this during the syllabus day or something, but I'm 100% okay with any kind of resubmits that you want to do. But at the same point in time, if I get, something that's really low quality, I'm not even going to bother read it. I'll just kick it back to you with a 0 and say, try again. But they're not that hard. Don't be too intimidated by these. All right. So we have 2 of these. This is the first one. The other one's due in module 6. So we won't see that one until late March. All right. And so this kind of helps me get an idea of your writing quality. Okay. And so, your homework does a good job of that too. Some of you are going to be absolutely fine on this. And I think a couple of you, it'd do you a little bit of good to dive into some of these questions a little bit deeper. All right. But where do you find the case studies? It's really easy. Just go over here, any one of the course modules. All right. So you can click on any one, choose any one, and then go to the readings. All right. So let's just do chapter 3 here real quick. And in chapter 3, so notice at the end of the chapter list here, you have a critical thinking case, and so that would be the one for chapter 3. So this one talks about stereotyping at Pitney Bowes. All right, a lot of people do this one. This one's actually pretty good because this one talks about age discrimination in the workforce. And then, 3 questions. Answer each one of these. What are other ways a company can utilize multi-generational team to their advantage? What challenges do a multi-generational team pose to management? And what should the company and management team consider when attracting new employees? So bam, 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 1, 2, 3 questions. 1 paragraph on each. So this would be about 1.5 pages. All right. Likewise, you can pick a chapter we haven't easy like, woo, leadership. Let me go take a look at that one. Ta-da! There's a critical thinking case study right there. Click on that. This one's United Airlines. In fact, this one's actually pretty common. A lot of people do this one. But again, same thing. 3 questions, 1, 2, 3 right there. So it's just answer them. And, don't worry if you jack it up. So, it's, again, it's one of those things you want you to engage and kind of understand some of the things that are going out there in the world. The case studies in this book are pretty good. All right. And, they're not like traditional HBS case studies that maybe you do in some of your other classes. So, hopefully they can kind of stimulate your thinking on certain things. But again, the reason why I let you pick one is just because, just pick one that speaks to you. You go through and look at a couple different ones, and then, and then the same thing's true with the next one. So when we get to week, whatever it is, I think it's module 6. You can pick any one as long as it's not the one that you did before. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, punch them in there. All right. Common questions. Do I need a cite from outside sources? Nope. All right. So no, you can run completely off your judgment on these if you choose to. That's fine. That's not a problem. Some people do that from time to time. Do you need to cite the book? No. All right. Does the rest of it need to be in single page or single space? No, just that first piece, just that little header. Because otherwise, I've seen people trying to get sneaky, and that header becomes about this big, and that's not it's the purpose of it. All right, so the rest of it, yeah, it's, you double space the rest of it. That's absolutely fine. In fact, it'll do my eyes some good. Other common questions on it. Let's see. Does it need to be APA format? No, I think somewhere in the rubric somewhere it says that. Don't worry about that. So just follow the format in the actual assignment sheet there. So not APA format. Don't need an abstract. Can't think of any other common questions off the top of my head. So if you've got one, punch it in there. All right. Be happy to cover it again, but it is pretty straightforward assignment. And so, like I said, you can do 2 of these, but I did want to point this out. I don't know if I added this yet. Yes. Okay. So you do 2 of these. And so here's one in module 3. That's the module we're on right now. And module 6, here's another one. I do offer you the opportunity to do another one, so you can do a third of these for extra credit. This is the only way in the entire class that you can get some kind of extra credit that's above and beyond the 1,000 points that's in the class. And so naturally the question is, if I do this, do I not have to do the leader interview? And the answer to that is maybe. So the class is out of 1,000 points. So you figure out how you need to get there. I would say that like most people can't pull that off, but every now and then I do see someone who's at like that. I don't know, like 849, 850, kind of point scale, and they decide, oh well, let me go take a couple of the quizzes a couple times, get those points back. And then bing, so all of a sudden they're over 900 and they don't have to do the leader interview. It does happen. I have seen it happen a couple of times. Don't bank on it unless you're planning on it, all right? So, and make sure that you're getting max points out of the quizzes, all right? Because that usually turns into the thing that kind of jams people up, all right? And like I said, any questions on that, punch them into the chat there, and we will be, oh man, I crud my eyes this morning. Be happy to go over that in a little bit greater detail or address those specific issues that you may have. All right. Again, we need trivia questions today. So here I am blathering on about this. I'm getting confused about Monday morning. It is President's Day. It's 11:35. So I suppose it's time to dive into part 2 of the individual here. All right. And so chapter 5, let's do it. All right, so diversity, yay, it's Diversity Day with their organizational behavior class. So this always comes up at least once. You're going to see it here. You're going to see it in HR for sure if you haven't taken that class already. I'm pretty sure it's in Management 201. You're going to see it again in ethics, and you're going to see it probably in strategic management as well. And so I come at this with a little bit of a different tack than some other people. And so bear with me here on this one because, it's a really important topic to discuss. But usually in management classes and business courses in particular, they kind of treat this as like a boilerplate thing. It's like, all right, so this is it's a big deal in terms of social justice and legal compliance and a lot of different things. And so I think there's a tendency for people to cover this kind of like consistently across the board. And so once you've seen it like once or twice, and this is going to happen to you on a career too, and we'll get into that in a minute here, but I think that it deserves a little bit deeper thought than just, the mandatory PowerPoint, so to speak. And so we'll dive into it in some detail here. All right. We're going to talk about and so let's see, we got 2 weeks on this module. So yeah, we'll talk about this today and on Wednesday. And so let's get a little organized about this here real quick. Yeah, we'll save most of these for Wednesday, but let's talk about these today up here. So, introduction to diversity in the workforce, and then we'll get all the way up to impact on companies because there's some theories that drive that as well. And there is some measurable outcomes, but we'll take a little bit of a different tack to get there today as well. Oh, excuse me. All right, so here we go. Let's go in. Let's dive in here. So, diversity generally, like we refer to it now as identity-based differences between individuals. And that's something that's important, okay? And that's usually where most diversity like efforts begin and end. All right, and this book does a little bit better job of actually probing into the kind of the well, what does it actually do? What does diversity in a workforce actually do? Because most of the time we're going to sit down and HR is going to call you together for a meeting or something like that. You can have almost annual training on this, depending on your company. And particularly if your company's gotten in trouble for this stuff in the past. Okay. So if you get into an organization and man, they're just like, you know, just absolutely harping on this at some point in time in your career, if you're early in your career and you're in like a line position, so like an employee position rather than a management position, and so you have everybody has to come to these things, so like all the line employees and things like that, we have to get together and have our diversity training. Then you that should trip off your radar a little bit, okay? So it should be one of those things. It's like, well, why are we doing this so much? All right, have we had problems with this before? I'm going to venture a guess that the answer is yes. All right, and especially if you're seeing it on that low level. If you're in management, okay, and you go to a management like position early in your career, or you get promoted into a management position, and maybe it's from a line position and you didn't get exposed to a lot of training in this, but then in management they just hammer you with it. That should trip off your radar too, all right, in one way or another, because really what that signal is telling you is that, well, some managers at some point in time and somewhere in this company really got in trouble for this, and so now we got to roll out mandatory training to everybody. Now the problem is that sometimes when you look around your workforce and you don't see that stuff going on, it's like, well, why do we do this? All right, so I mean, it's a waste of time, and everybody gets it. Yeah, I know. This is all really important, but at the same point in time, if you're not seeing like a direct like link between what you're being told and what's going on the job, your tendency is going to be to like kind of dismiss that training. All right. Or if it's poorly presented in one way or another. And that happens a lot. There's a lot of companies out there, they go out there and they buy like off the shelf products from either education management corps or, a lot of these HR firms and stuff like that, that put together some form of online training. All right, which is basically just, how fast can I click through it, kind of thing. And if you've ever been through one of those, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, because they'll say, "Well, go do your sexual harassment training or something like that." It's like, "Oh God, yes, boss. I keep forgetting it. Click, 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 submit." And then you print out your certificate and go give it to your boss and say, "Yes, I'm good now." But really, when it comes down to it, that kind of training, I don't think it really strikes. I don't think it really reinforces the actual issues that are going on here, or addresses them. It just teaches us in some ways to kind of like poo-poo some of these things. And so be careful if that's what your company's doing as well. All right. Because again, a lot of times diversity, we just look at these identity-based differences, which are very simple. All right. So the easiest way to think about them is almost always like along the lines of the Civil Rights Act. So, those protected status or protected classes. So that's race, ethnicity, same thing as far as the law is concerned. Maybe cultural studies, different thing. Got it. All right. But as far as the law is concerned, it's considered the same thing. Creed. All right. So, which is religion. All right. Same thing. The next one is national origin, where you were born, is irrelevant as far as any kind of employment decisions. And then, of course, gender. Is the other one that's protected. And there's a couple other little ones here. So like disability, that one's different because it falls under the ADA. And then veteran status, that's another one because that falls under a different law. And then there's a couple others that like states will extend credit to. So, like, sexual orientation is one. The federal government sort of does, but it's not equally protected under the Civil Rights Act. It's never actually been baked into it. But most states, have like, because state law is more restrictive than federal law in most cases. And so they actually, the like state of Colorado, this is like sexual orientation is definitely protected status. But then there's a lot of things that people think are but aren't. Okay, so like here in Colorado, classic example, is whether or not you can smoke weed. Is that your company's business? The answer is absolutely, because it's not protected under the law. All right. The other one is like, do I have a criminal record or something like that? If you have a criminal record, should that be protected status? The answer to that question is, well, maybe it should be, but it's not. All right, so at least under the law, and so absolutely, positively, they can use that to discriminate against you in terms of employment. So, hey, Rian, how are you? No worries. So those are what would be what we kind of like look as identity-based differences between two or more different people. Okay. Oh, age is the other one that's really important. Age is actually protected under the Civil Rights Act, and it's also there's another one out there. I can't remember the exact law. All right, that protects that, but age discrimination is technically illegal. Most people don't know where the like cutoff is, and so here in the state of Colorado, I believe it's at 18. All right. So, but under federal law, it actually doesn't kick in until 40. All right. And so some states out there, you're not actually protected from age discrimination until you're over the age of 40. And, some people might say, well, that's really weird. Why is it like that? But the law itself is actually pretty, it makes a little sense once you think about it, because I think that law dates back to like 1960. It's like 65 or 68, somewhere in that era. And what companies would do back then is, well, very few people went to college. Well, enough people went to college, but, the vast majority of people got pumped out of high school. Especially the male parts of the workforce would, just jet down the street and go get a job at the Ford plant. All right, well, the Ford plant or whatever plant, so the steel mill, here's a good example. Get a job at the mill. All right, and so the mill, of course, is a union job. Well, at least back then. And so, in union, the way most union contracts works is with, regular intervals raises or step increases. So you work here a year, here's an extra 10 cents an hour or something like that, whatever. Okay, and so you're guaranteed that every single year based upon that employment contract. Well, the smart thing for the company to do was after a little while, they, go in and say, it's time to turn over some of our workforce. Let's take some of these expensive guys and fire them because they've been on the job for 20 years. Because, if I have a 40-year-old, that person probably costs twice as much as a 20-year-old. So I can get two 20-year-olds if I cash out one 40-year-old. And, companies absolutely used to do that. And so that's why that's in the law as well, age discrimination. But it's usually not the way that you think. All right. So like most people, especially when you're entering the workforce, you think, well, age discrimination, it's like, well, what are these guys sitting on these jobs, these old heads? Right. That's not how most of the age discrimination suits go. It's usually the opposite. All right. So where you have someone who's been on the job for a very long time, they're expensive. All right. And so companies will find sneaky ways to try and get rid of their more senior employees. And so most age discrimination suits actually go in that direction. Although there are some that go in the other. So that does happen too. And we'll get into that a little bit if we want to talk about some of the specifics here. But before we do that, we need to do a trivia question here real quick before I get too far ahead of myself. Because I could blather on this stuff for days and I don't want to keep you here all day. All right, so but anyway, let's I don't have a topic, so let's just do some general trivia Q&A. Although we were gonna do, what was it? No, we did Harry Potter in this class. God dang, there was a comic that we were gonna do. No, that's the other class. I can't remember, man. So we'll do general today, and then punch the topic in there next time we do this. before I get to this stage, and we'll just run with that. Or maybe we do astronomy in this class? I don't know. It's gonna be a long semester if I'm trying to keep every class sorted together on topics. So we'll just go with whatever. Oh no, we did movies in here. Oh, that's right, Masters of the Universe. Okay, so Wednesday, I'm gonna write that down right now. So, because that one's gonna take a little bit more off-camera time to research. So there we go. Oh, and Marvel, yeah, okay. Yeah, all right. So okay, maybe we might wrap those together, but today we're gonna do some general here. But I will hook you up with those on Wednesday. I promise. It's on my list. Let's see. Maybe we'll just turn Monday into a general day. I don't know. So I would if I could find my site again. There we go. Oh, let's see. Let's find something here. Oh my gosh, we get a lot of. Oh, okay. Let's do some chemistry. What is the symbol for potassium on the periodic table of elements? What is the? That's right. What is the symbol for potassium? Come on, some of you science nerds should know this one right off the top of your head. Yes, we do have time to relive our childhoods. That is true. So, but the chemical symbol for potassium is what? Yes, good job, Andy. It's K. Excellent. A little bit of high school chemistry trivia there for us. So I like it. Good job, Andy. So yeah, no, I mean, okay, good. Everybody's punched it in there, so y'all remember it a little bit. So, but you know, that I kind of like the memory ones too, where it's like, well, I could Google that real quick, but I also might know it too. So yeah, it's definitely K. So good job, Andy. You win that one. We'll do another one here in just a minute. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about diversity. Now, this is what I really want you to get out of this chapter, and it's the thing that I want you to think about on the job, is that there's actually multiple different layers of diversity. Okay, and so there's types of it. So the first one, and the one where most companies stop in terms of thinking about that, is surface level diversity, and that's that identity level of diversity. So it's gender, it's race, it's age. It's veteran status, things like that. You look around the room, does everybody in the room look exactly like you? That's a place that doesn't have much surface level diversity. And so that one being the most apparent and being the one that, gets people into the most trouble. All right. Honestly, that's the one that companies pay a lot of attention to. All right. For better or for worse, whichever way you want to look at that. But that's not, I'm going to argue that's not really the important one, okay? So especially when you get into management, you start to realize that, okay, if I do have a surface level diversity problem, it's my problem as a manager. I need to do something about that, all right? And particularly if I'm like doing certain things in a certain way that's actually leading to that. As far as, everybody around here kind of looks the same. And this happens because birds of a feather do flock together. And I would say that it's not as common, like, as most people think about it. All right. The most common form of, like, discrimination that you see on the job that is instigated by a manager is usually not like, ethnicity or race based. So, maybe back when I first joined the workforce, there's a little bit more of that. I haven't seen any of that to a great degree in quite some time. Gender discrimination is much more common, all right? And age discrimination is hands down the most common, all right? And managers engage that all the time, all right? So you have a young manager that doesn't want to hire any older employees, okay? Same thing, you'll have an older manager that doesn't want to hire any young employees, doesn't want to have to break them in and stuff like that, Same thing, younger managers don't want to have to retrain older employees. And so there's a natural inclination to actually, be a little bit, biased or a little bit more. I mean, bias isn't really the right word. It's more like preferential, okay? So in terms of of like your hiring preferences. All right, so you'll just have a better impression of someone who kind of fits in your age category than you will somebody who's outside of it. So a lot of younger employees, of course, are intimidated by older employees, and a lot of older employees. Yet the funny thing is they're just as intimidated of younger employees, and so they won't associate with them quite as much. And so that's kind of the ironic piece behind it. All right, so you do see that sometimes, but the thing that's much, much more common is you see violations of this, which is what we call deep level diversity, all right, which is diversity in characteristics that are non-observable. And so these are things like attitudes, behaviors, personality, beliefs, such like religion, unless someone's like literally wearing their religion on their sleeve or has to wear a particular form of dress because of it, which isn't terribly common. I'll tell you the truth. Geez, how many times have I run into that in my career? Maybe like twice. Yeah, where that was actually an issue. Um, but that would be something that would actually turn that from a deep level diversity to kind of a surface level thing, because these deep things, these are things you cannot see from the outside, like veteran status. So there are certain people out there you can tell pretty quickly. This is the USMC veteran tattooed on their forehead. Okay, got it. You're a veteran. All right. So, but other people, I mean, no, I mean, unless they're the people who have all the bumper stickers on their cars and things like that. Or they come in, they set up their cube, and it's nothing but Army stuff. It's like, okay, I kind of see what's going on here. But other than that, you might never be able to tell, especially if you don't have access to the resume or something like that. Same thing with like some form of like criminal record or something like that. Unless you ran the background check and got the report on it, you wouldn't know that. But those all make up what we call deep level diversity. So it's really the way to think about it is about difference in background. It's not a difference is in terms of what you've been assigned. All right, in terms of what society thinks about a particular gender or race or something like that, national origin, but it's rather what you've actually experienced in your past. That makes up deep level diversity, and that is much more rare. All right, on the job, depending on the workforce. Okay, so like some of the best places that I worked had virtually zero of this. Okay, because everybody got along because everybody kind of came from the same background. All right, so they had kind of the same upbringings. Maybe there's some little bit differences here and there. Okay, this person played ball and she did swim team or something like that. But we all had like, this general like lower to middle class background, did okay in high school and went to college. Not the best college, but, a good college, for our region and things like that. And so we're all working in this one environment. All right, that's kind of this place where people who are from our backgrounds kind of land, all right, because it's a pretty good job. That's my time when I was a financial advisor. There was nobody in that room who came from Harvard, and likewise, there was nobody in that room who dropped out of high school. There was nobody in that room who actually spent any time in prison, all right, and there were very few people in that time who'd spent any time in the service, all right, and so that's the lack of deep level diversity there. Now, if you looked across the room, yeah, it was about 50-50, men and women. We had all different races, all different ethnicities. There were a couple of people who like probably were gay. I don't know. It's not my business to ask them. All right. But that was kind of the point. All right. So we had a lot of this surface level diversity, but we had almost none of this deep level diversity. Whereas when I've worked in the airlines in particular, all right, because the airline would attract a lot of different people. It's different than working, say, like at steel mill or the railroad, or something like that, because in those places you attract a very different type of crowd, so very blue collar, so to speak. But in the airlines, you get a little bit of everybody because of the flight benefits, honestly. This was a long time ago, so this has probably changed a little bit. But like just the place that I worked the first time in the airlines, I'd say about maybe a third of the people, and if you looked at us across the room, it's a very diverse crowd. It's one of the very few places I worked with bona fide Vietnam veterans at the time. And that was a very different era, where, there was like common identity that actually like transcended any form of identity politics or any of these identity characteristics here. And so that was a very unique experience. But anyway, so we had service members, we had people who went to Ivy League schools, we had a couple guys who had extensive criminal records. This is before 9/11, I'm going to tell you. So all kinds of different things. All right. So, and that we would attract a lot of deep level diversity, but again, that was kind of a function of the job. All right, so we had flexible hiring policies. We had kind of the buddy system kind of going on, and so you just kind of grab bag. There were things that in other places would scrub you from consideration, like a criminal record, that didn't really matter there. I guarantee that all changed after 9/11, but when I started working in the airlines, it was way before then. And so, what really started to change after a little while was, of course, if the job itself, the nature of the job itself changes to accommodate a certain segment of society, that job is going to start to look like that segment of society. And the airlines are very, very different. Education is like, I hate to say this, but education on all levels really suffers from a lack of this. All right. And you've probably seen this a little bit in high school. You go into high school or even here in college. I mean, it's probably a little bit worse in college. But I noticed it when I was working in high school. And that was, oh, geez, like 10, 12 years ago. But there was like this commonality in terms of like how we approach like our views about education, because we kind of have this like lack of diversity in terms of the backgrounds they came from. So most people who teach in high schools or things like that, they'll either come from the communities from when they teach, but they generally have very similar backgrounds in one way or another. And what I mean by that is like the reason why most people go into education, especially in a high school level or something like that, is because education worked for them. Okay. So they went to school, they did the things, and they went to college, they liked college, they wanted to stay with their subject matter, whether it be English or math or something like that. And but just fundamentally there's this lack of diversity in terms of thinking, because all of them think that school is where you should be. It's a cool place to be, and education will work out for you. All right, in one way or another. And so if you're ever going to find a common theme between all the people, most of the people in high school, every now and then you find a couple contrarians here and there, but they just don't survive in that world. You don't have someone come into a high school and say, I want to be a history teacher. They say, oh, what do you think about high school? I say, I think it's a waste of time. Nobody's going to say that. So but you go out there in the working world, and absolutely you're going to find people who say that. I was like, why do you learn all that stuff? And I like we just did chemistry here. All right. So, there's going to be a lot of people out there who say, why are you wasting your time on that in high school? It's stuff that you're never, ever going to use again. All right. I've never used chemistry over the entire course of my career. And I used to work with hazmat and all kinds of stuff. There's a whole different system out there. It's like, I don't even know what potassium is. I need to know what the UNID of this thing is, but that's completely different. Okay? So, but really when it comes down to it, there are going to be people out there who are going to question those things. That represents more diversity in terms of backgrounds. Because maybe it's got people out there who, well, high school didn't really work out for me, or college was a waste of my time or something like that. And now you got to work with somebody like that. All right? You can't have somebody who's in a high school as a teacher who has that attitude and expect them to survive very long. And so you do find that there are sometimes where this lack of deep level diversity really starts to just occur because it's a function of the job. All right. So people like that, people who are contrarians, they just don't survive. And then last but not least, we have these hidden diversity characteristics, deep level, but maybe concealed. Okay. So these are things that people don't want you to necessarily know about. Like a lot of people, they don't want you to know about their sexual orientation. All right. So same thing's true. Like, like this isn't as true as it used to be, but there used to be a lot of people who would like really go out of their way to kind of hide their service records. Now that's more of a Vietnam era thing. All right, but it did happen, okay? And nowadays, it's like almost one of those things where I'm starting to see it kind of flip back that way in some respects, just because, some employers, man, they just, the way that they kind of like, used a lot of veterans, especially, and I mean, this isn't so true now, but it was definitely like 5 years ago or maybe 6 years ago when you're starting to get a lot of people who are rotating out. All right. So as they started to tamp things down, I mean, companies would go out there and it was basically like a gold rush for employees for a little bit, because like a lot of companies would just snap up people who were coming out of the service because they knew, number one is that Uncle Sam is paying most of their medical bills right off the bat. all right, especially if they're medically retired or they have disability, all right, through the VA. And so the company's going to reduce its medical expenditures, all right. Number two, they don't have to pay them as much because, again, if you're on disability or something like that, you got hurt overseas, you got a bad back, which happens to everybody in the military. I don't know anybody who's come out of the military with their back intact. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Some of you could probably speak to that more than I can, but I know quite a few vets. So, and then, so they don't have to pay you as much because you either got partial disability or you've got your retirement check or whatever. All right, so you get some kind of compensation, or the VA is helping pay your mortgage or something like that. So you can buy a nicer house, and you can actually work for a lower salary than the civilians in that market. And then last but not least, and the one that I actually think is the most important, and the reason why a lot of organizations went after veterans during this time was they're compliant. Okay, so you don't get someone doesn't spend 8 years in the Army or 12 years in the Marine Corps or something like that and pop out and suddenly they're a bad employee. All right, so no, they're going to show up on the first day and they're going to be tickled pink for about a year or two because everything in the civilian world is way more chill than it is in the military, especially during wartime. All right, and so I can be a manager, and I know that my veteran employee is going to show up on time every single day. All right, because that's been indoctrinated in them for the length of their career, and so they're really easy hires. And then I've noticed the last 4 or 5 years, some veterans have gotten wise to this and realized that, oh, wait a minute, there's some predator companies out there that try to snap up vets left and right. All right, but they're actually really crappy jobs. They tease them with oh, we're going to use your leadership experience and stuff like that, but the company has no intention whatsoever of actually putting people up through the ranks. I mean, there's a couple that do, but eventually you're going to hit that hard cap that doesn't really exist in the military, because there's constant turnover. But you're going to find that hard cap exists in a company where you're going to hit that GM level or something like that. And rather than the military was move up or out kind of thing, in that company, you might have a boss who's sitting over your job, and that guy ain't going anywhere for 15 years, and so you're stuck. All right. That happens a lot. All right. Just because it's a different nature of the world. And so, so I think some people have gotten a little bit more wise about, being careful about disclosing this to too many people on the job. And so we'll see if some of that comes back. But other types, and the most common hidden characteristic, of course, and I've dealt with this extensively in not just the education world, but in some of the research that I've done as well, is any form of criminal background. All right. So, there's a lot of people out there say that, a felony is a death sentence to your career. That's not true. Okay. So it's just, it is if you're not already involved in something. All right. It'll close a lot of doors on you that you'll never be able to open again. Because on a background check, they say, okay, well, my record's expunged or something like that. But if you do a deferred sentence or something like that and say, well, we drop all the charges, that guilty plea still shows up on most background checks down the road. Most employees don't realize that, and people who are in a jam, they're just oh, I don't want to go to jail. It's so I get a DUI or something like that. Yeah, I'll do a deferred sentence. It's okay, cool. You kept your butt out of jail. That's awesome. Okay. So, but at the same point in time, if I run a $7 background check on you as an employer, I'm going to be able to see that guilty plea. All right. Because it showed up on that county court records. So, okay, you had to interview that in order to actually agree to that deferred sentence. And so I'm totally going to see that. All right. And as a manager, I instantaneously am going to start making inferences about that. So, and I don't even have to necessarily see the nature of I don't need to know all the details and stuff. All I see is driving under the influence right there. It's oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So I've got two applicants here, and this one doesn't have one of these. So whoop, this got easy real fast. All right. And that's exactly how that goes. All right, and so that hidden level diversity, but I'm going to argue that's just as important as this deep level diversity in some respects, because quite honestly, so if you respect this, all right, what you're really doing is you're respecting your employees' privacy, all right, which is quite lacking out there. It's gotten worse, all right. So if you ever work for one of those companies out there and you're really reluctant about using the company computer on the internet because you know that they've got they've got your browse log and stuff like that. Um, that company might be up to something that's not good for you in the long run. Now, I don't think there's any companies out there that are evil about it. I'm sure they exist, all right. So, but I've never run into them. But really, when it comes down to it, there's also situations out there where you have a company or an organization that just doesn't really respect its boundaries between like its expectation of your employees and their private lives. If you have a company that consistently violates that just because they think it's their, just it's my prerogative, I pay you, kind of thing, you're going to drive a lot of this hidden diversity out of the company because people are going to do things about things when they find it out. So they find out it's like, oh yeah, well, Bob over here spent 12 years in federal prison. Let me go Google that and see. It's like, oh wow, yeah, so he's a sackpot, So if you don't know what that is, please don't Google that. But at the same point in time, I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in organizations where all of a sudden we get this revelation that so and so has some kind of dark and mysterious past, and it just introduces this toxin into the company, into the work group and things like that because it represents a violation of trust. So, but think about that in some respect. Who's violating whose trust there? Okay, so if I do have something that's actually, private, all right, shouldn't it be private and doesn't it contribute to this in the long run? That's a good question, all right? And so that's something that you're going to have to think about. And so nowadays, this is so much harder to pull off, all right? Because if I'm hiring, all right, what's the first thing I'm going to do? Okay, I'm going to do all the things the company tells me to do. So it's going to have its automatic washing machine that's going to go through and, flush out like people who misspell stuff on the resume, or, it'll run the $3 background check and see if you've got any outstanding warrants or something like that, or if it, like if you have got any convictions in the county in which the job is located. So that's the cheap background check you do real fast, kind of thing. And so the machine will flush you out all on those. All right. Then I'll get your resumes and I'll sit there as a manager and I'll go through my own personal biases and say like, oh, well, this font is too small. Why did you put flowers in the background? Stuff like that. You're kind of like horrified hearing me say things like this. But when you start hiring, you'll understand. Okay. So that, really there are certain things that, you'll develop pet peeves as a manager. But there's other things that just serve as stand-ins for things that actually turn out to be true. So like if the thing says keep your resume to a page, keep it to a page. All right. Because if I get a 6-pager, all right, it's like, okay, you don't know how to follow directions. So gonzo, I'm not even going to read it at that point in time. But after you do that and you kind of, get a little bit more like cognizant of what you're doing, and maybe treat it a little bit more seriously than some managers do. Great. Okay. But you still have to read through, say like for a decent job, 100, 150 resumes. That's not uncommon. All right. And so how are you going to decide who to pull in? Well, if this is all the information I got, I ain't got time to do 150 interviews. Maybe I'll pick the best 10 that I can find out of here. And so, you look for the people who are the most qualified, people that you think are going to fit for the team. Oftentimes it's people who wrote the best cover letter, whatever kind of thing. And then really after that, you're going to be like, all right, well, let's call these people in for an interview. I guarantee you, and I don't want you to do this, but you're going to be tempted to, okay? And I don't know, maybe it'll be okay in the future, but, like the thing that most people do now, and especially in management, is they'll sit down and they'll Google you. Okay, and so Google yourself and what exactly out there is, on the internet that other people can find. There's stuff on the internet that I've got out there that has nothing to do with my job. Okay, do I really want my employer to know about that? All right, and so this hidden diversity, I think, is becoming a more rare quantity because of the public nature of work anymore. So like it's not impossible, but it's very dangerous to try and lie on a resume. So, now like, because even like your job history is out there, okay? There are collector bots out there, all right? So, and they're very expensive, but at the same point in time, they do exist. that actually companies buy into, okay? And in exchange for access to their data, you have to cough up your data, which includes your employment records. And so I can think of two of them off the top of my head, where if you have access to this, and so if it's a company of, any decent girth out there, they have access to these because they buy into them. And they'll run your resume through the machine there and see if all your dates match up. They do that now, okay? So, and that's again, because like a lot of this stuff is no longer hidden, okay? Now it might be hidden to you, and you might know, oh, I didn't know they do that. Yeah, of course they do. All right. And so it's really hard to lie on your resume. Now it's easy to fib on your resume because oftentimes those things don't include like exact performance metrics and stuff like that. So, as long as you get your dates to line up and your job title line up, you can say, oh yeah, well, look at all the awesome stuff I did. So don't do that. But at the same point in time, it's also reducing this amount of hidden diversity that's actually out there. And oh my gosh, so that's just the first piece there, and I spent like 30 minutes talking about that. If you have any questions on that, punch it in, and I'd be happy to answer those. But at the same point in time, it's time for another trivia question here, because we're at the hour mark, just about. And like I said, I could just go on and on about this. I can tell you some real horror stories about this on Wednesday, so be there. All right, so we'll definitely get into that when we talk about things that are actually going on in the world. Let's see. Let's find something else here. Oh, okay. Here's food and drink. All right, so let's see. Here we go. We haven't done one of these, I don't think. Or maybe we have. Let's see. So this is wrong. This says that pizza was invented in Italy. It was invented in New York. Boo. So we're not going to do that one. Let's see. Oh, here's a great one. What's the strongest muscle in your body? What is the strongest muscle in your body? Oh, this is a great one. Strongest muscle in your body. So I remember this one from anatomy class. Strongest muscle in your body. Go. For a free quiz or homework, strongest muscle in your body. No, that's not what. Oh, maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't know if that's actually what it's called. Oh, that's interesting. That's not the answer that I have here. Yeah, no, Rianne, that's the one that I've got. It says tongue. All right, so, but masseter, I guess that's your jaw muscle? So, muscle which runs through the rear part of the cheek. Let's just check this out here real quick. I'm really kind of curious. Strongest muscle. Oh, hey, look at that. Based on its weight is the masseter. So, with all the muscles, the jaw, I can close teeth, 55 pounds on incisors. Okay, well, that's what this one says. But the website says tongue, too. So, tell you what, I'm going to give that to both of you. Yeah, I think that's strongest one by weight. Actually said, this said tongue. And I remember that from my anatomy class. But, oh my God, that was a long time ago. So, who knows? All right, so I'm going to give that to both of you. Let's see, Rianne. Oh, you got it right both times. Boo! So no, you don't get two. I'm going to give it to Matt, all right, because he's the first one to say master after you. But you also said tongue, and that's the answer that I got. So I'll give one to you, Matt, and I'll give one to you, Rianne. Yeah, you got it right first time, both times. But no, you only get one per day, so that's the rule around here. You know that. All right, good job. So we are at the hour mark here. Tell you what, let's let's go ahead and pull the pin on this one today. You bet, no worries, because I want to get back to this stuff in greater detail on Wednesday. We could talk a little bit about some of this. I think I've already talked about most of these here, and this is the stuff that you see over and over again. All right, in terms of any kind of diversity training. So we're going to actually skip on to this one here and talk about challenges and its impact upon companies, because this is the stuff that might be a little bit new that you haven't seen before. All right, but again, we will, and we're going to see this again down here. It's down here somewhere where we're actually going to talk about some of the different considerations that you need to take into the things that you need to take into consideration as a manager, especially legally involving these things, because I think that's something that we generally do a poor job of covering in business school. It's one of those things that as soon as you run into something that's serious on the job, sometimes you just don't know what to do, and so I want to spend a little bit of time on that as well. But again, like I said, I kind of come at this with a little bit different tack. It's a little bit more of a pragmatic bent. All right, because some of the things that you're going to see on the job they're going to blow your mind. And there's going to be a couple other things that, you're going to be doing and you're not realizing that you're actually kind of wandering into dangerous territory. And so I want you to be cognizant of those things as well. And so, on Wednesday, we'll dive into both of these in quite a bit, but we're also going to make sure that we spend a little bit of time talking about the law. But hopefully we kind of laid a little bit of the foundation for this today. Definitely engage with this chapter, and if you have questions, ask. All right, because, this is not stuff that you want to learn on the fly, so to speak. But at the same point in time, it is something that you want to consistently be cognizant of. And so sometimes you can get a pretty good feel for this right off the bat in a company just during the interview process. All right. So if you're interviewing with a company, take a look around and don't be sitting there thinking like, all right, so do I have people? So I have panel interview. I have 3 people in here. Are they different ages? Are they different races? Are they different genders and things like that? What you really want to start thinking about is this deep level diversity. And you can find that out pretty quick, even as an interviewee. All right, just based upon the quality of the questions that you're getting asked, so the way in which people are responding to things, you can start to get a little bit of a feel for how much deep level diversity in the company, because as we're going to find out on Wednesday, that's actually what really matters. All right, with an organization, but there's several different ways to get there. And then I want you to start thinking about some of that hidden level diversity as well. So really, like, how much of like the identities that we ascribe to individuals, how much of that really is a company's business? All right. And if a company feels comfortable like wandering into that territory, what does that actually say about their ethics as a company? You're going to find that there are companies out there that are extremely intrusive. They might look great on the outside. It might be a great opportunity for you. All right, but you're going to have to trade a little bit of privacy for that. Are you okay with that? Think about that. And then last but not least, I would absolutely encourage you, if you have not done it, go out there and Google yourself and do it in a couple different ways. First name, last name first name last, and vice round, and, vice versa and things like that. Just punch it in there a couple different ways. Put it in quotes, all right? And start seeing what pops up on you on a public site. Do it on like an incognito window or something like that, so it doesn't have any of your previous search history in there. I think that's how that works. If not, go to a different browser, one that you don't normally use, and punch it in there and see what companies will actually be looking at when they take a look at you. And like, so I've had students in the past who always said things like, well, all my stuff is set to private and blah, blah, blah. It still bleeds out there. You know that. All right. So it still bleeds out there in one way or another. And then, like the real red flag in some respects these days is if you Google somebody and nothing comes up, it's kind of like, whoa, what's going on with you, dude? Are you actively scrubbing things out? Why are you doing that? All right. And I guarantee you that there's companies out there that are going to think along those lines as well. And so best piece of advice on that is manage that footprint as much as you can. But at the same point in time, ask yourself, because you're going to be a manager too, how much of that is your business? So I don't have a good answer for that one. All right. So, in this class, a lot of DuckDuckGo. Yeah, DuckDuckGo is great. So yes, so that's the one that is completely like free and clear. But again, you know, if I go over there and if I punch you in there and I don't see nothing, that's a red flag too. All right, and so you know, you're not really doing yourself any favors if you have nothing out there. All right, so you know you got to consider that one as well, because really when it comes down to it, I mean, a lot of times companies are looking for, you know, they're looking for this. You know, they're trying to build up surface level diversity, and so they can't ask you questions like that. They can't ask you is like, you know, oh, are you black? You know, they can't ask you that on your application for obvious reasons. Okay, so even though you fill out the thing, I mean, no manager ever sees that. That's just for reporting. So that just goes to HR. Then, you know, as a hiring manager, I'd never be able to tell the ethnicity of it. Well, I mean, I guess if, yeah, so certain cultures, yeah, I'd be able to tell pretty quick. Like, I can pick out somebody just based upon name, all right, in some cases. So you can definitely pick out somebody who's from India or China, if you understand how Asian names work and things like that. You can definitely pick that out on a resume, but you can't tell whether or not they're actually from, you know, South Korea, or if they're, you know, I mean, like born and raised in America, you know, something like that. But those aren't things that you should be like trying to find out as a manager. But again, with this piece right here, a lot of times that's why they're Googling you is okay, what does this guy look like? Oh, what does she look like? You know, kind of thing. And so manage that profile. Be very careful about that. I know it's kind of creepy stuff. So yeah, but anyway, sorry, we're out of here. And so like I said, I could rant on this stuff for days, but we'll do a little bit more of that on Wednesday. And you know, bring your questions. All right, so because this is the time to talk about it. You know, on the job is not always the most appropriate time to talk about that. Here in class, absolutely, let's do it. All right, so that's all I got for you today. You're off the hook. I'll stick around here for another minute or so, just in case you have any questions. But other than that, good luck on that case study, and we'll catch you all on Wednesday. Have a wonderful afternoon. Hopefully, it gets above like freezing within a couple days. So, but regardless of that, we'll see you Wednesday. Take care now. Bye. Bye, Jeff. Bye, Rianne. You bet, Matt. Take care. Bye, Daisy. It's good to see you again. It's always a pleasure. Ashley, good to see you too. Take care. All right, give it about 10 seconds here, then we'll pull the pin. If you got a question, punch it there. Thanks, Dean. Appreciate that. Good to see you too, bud. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dunzo. See you Wednesday.